Hello, this is Bluestar, Defender of Equestria, and this is my next video about who can join the Royal Guard and why would they want to join the Royal Guard? It appears to be that the Royal Guard are a very, very exclusive thing because A, it is after all a quote-unquote military/fighting force, even though it's a defensive military fighting force, and obviously you in theory can't just let anybody in. And the other is that it doesn't appear there's a whole lot of the Royal Guard, and if they really only do exist to protect the princesses, then there's not a whole lot of them. I must admit I'm probably going to get into a lot of trouble during this, but I'm going to refer to my OC Bluestar an awful lot. And he has an immediate problem here, is that he has glasses. And I'm pretty sure that people who do have glasses can in fact join the military. There are certainly roles within the military that basically exclude you immediately if you have something like glasses. For example, I've overheard once that if you can't become a fighter pilot if you wear glasses. End of story. Done. And I don't have a problem with that. Being a fighter pilot is obviously a pretty exclusive deal. There's only so many fighters to go around, and well, you really only want to put the person who's ultimately the best qualified behind us, the stick of a $16 million jet. I have a feeling to a point there would be those kinds of restrictions in the Royal Guard. But however, obviously Equestria is a fairly open, accepting society, and I think that to a point, if you were capable of doing the job, I think they would let you in. In my own story, Bluestar 1, he does eventually manage to join the Royal Guard. But after much trial and error, basically showing that despite the glasses, he's able to overcome this limitation and actually develop this quote-unquote target sense, where basically he can sense a target without having to look at it. And I think there's actually some precedent to something like that, but that's getting a little bit off topic. Obviously, a person who is reasonably strong, physically fit, and all that stuff would obviously be a requirement of the Royal Guard. Someone who was, well, small and weak and not very tough and stuff would obviously not become a member of the Royal Guard. And again, this kind of worked against Bluestar, because he's not weak and powerless, but he's not Big Mac. He's not big and strong. His forte is not hand-to-hand, well, I guess in this case, hoof-to-hoof combat. Fortunately, Bluestar has a couple skills that sort of overcome that, and I'm not going to go into detail on those right now. Now I'm going to tackle a big one. I'm sure I'm going to get into trouble for this. Would mayors be allowed to join the Royal Guard? Well, if we accept what we see in the show is true, that appears to be no. But just because we haven't seen mayors in the Royal Guard doesn't mean they don't exist. And since obviously Equestria is a matriarchal society where females are basically in charge, it would be allowed for them to join the military. However, before I say anything more, I think if you can do the job, I don't frankly care who you are. If you're a male, a female, white, black, gray, purple, blue, green, I don't care who you are. If you're tough enough to be a Marine, you can be a Marine and all that stuff. But I will say that one of the main reasons I think that the Royal Guard are all stallions is, well, stallions in general are bigger and stronger than mares, and therefore slightly better at physical fighting, which is frankly the kind of combat we would most likely expect to see the Royal Guard get into in Equestria. Having said that, there are certainly a lot of mares that would be able to kick a lot of stallions' butts. For example, Rainbow Dash, you can watch my back any day. However, this uniformness that the Royal Guard is apparently trying to accomplish is probably a main reason why they are all stallions. I think it's also a general military thing where everyone is supposed to be the same and discipline and all stuff like that. You look at all the Royal Guard and they look all the same. To all of a sudden to see a mare standing in the line would be sort of a little unusual. However, I would certainly support having mares be in the Royal Guard. I must admit it would be a little unusual at first, but I would say, okay, cool, good for her. And there is obviously precedent for this. When the main six go to the Crystal Empire, they just happen to have two suits of armor that happen to fit Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash. And I have a feeling these are in fact female armor, and they just didn't simply have a really small size in armor. This is female armor. So, cool. And obviously, we see that in Hearthwarming Eve, we see that not only are there female Pegasi who are basically members of the military, but Commander Hurricane is a female. So, again, good for them. Now I want to move on to sort of the quote-unquote uniform colors of all the Royal Guard, which are basically white, brown, I think gray or blue and stuff like that. I find it very, very difficult to believe that all the people who want to join the Royal Guard are just happen to be these colors. No, I think there's a different explanation. I must admit, in BlueStar 1, I had a very dangerous option, where basically they dyed their coats by basically half drowning them in, like, big pools of dye. I think there's slightly less dangerous ways to dye or change a pony's color. Particularly in Ghostbusters, we see that Trixie basically has the spell that changes Rarity's hair color, so maybe in theory there's a spell that would change their coat as well, so they wouldn't have to do that. But it also raises an interesting point about their cutie marks. Again, in BlueStar 1, BlueStar is so upset that basically his cutie mark and his color are basically painted over, that he basically in a way rejects that, and he just simply can't handle it. He doesn't want to do that. Which of course in the real military is a really bad thing. It's like, hey, if you don't want to wear the uniform, that's it, you're out, done, bye-bye, go home. In BlueStar's case, however, this may work to his advantage, but we'll see. But anyway, I have a feeling a lot of other ponies might feel this way too. A cutie mark is a very important thing to a lot of different ponies. To some ponies, they may not care, but to some ponies, it means a great deal to them, and it's not something they'd want to give up. However, the first question is, do they have to give it up? I think the answer to this question is no. I think in time the cutie mark would somehow reappear, because it's clear that the cutie mark is obviously powered by magic in some way. It's not just simply this thing that, like, biomechanically or whatever simply appears. It's obviously driven or comes about somehow by magic, or at least magic is involved in some way. So I think that in time the cutie mark would in fact reappear on the side of the flank of this pony. But of course, we don't really know if the Royal Guard have cutie marks or if they're just simply painted over, because the armor basically covers over their cutie marks so we don't see them, and of course this is an animation thing. And another minor point for another animation thing is that all the Royal Guard look alike. They all look like they're clones. And well, we know the answer to this is because, well, then technically they are clones. There's like 2, 3, maybe 4 Royal Guard in different colors and variations, whatever. And they basically just keep copying them over and over and over and over again, so technically they are clones. But I don't think they really are clones in the terms of the show, they just simply happen to look all alike and all that stuff. But yes, I do think they do in fact have their cutie marks, they're just simply covered by their armor and stuff like that, because I think a lot of ponies would have a problem with that. I know I would. And I think also that their colors are basically quote-unquote uniforms, that there's probably in reality probably a spell or something that they do that basically turns them this color. And if they like left the Royal Guard or if they go on vacation or something, I guess they could have a counter spell that puts their color back the way it was. Because let's face it, being turned a completely different color would definitely change the way you look and feel about yourself a great deal. But then again, maybe the ponies are beyond those things, or maybe you simply get used to it. I must admit, I think after a while BlueStar might actually like being this color, because I think all these colors are in a way very unique. I mean, for starters, we really don't see some of these colors in other ponies, with the exception of perhaps white. But of course, then there's the exception of Flash Sentry. Flash Sentry is the only one, including Shining Armor, who isn't one of these colors. He's this orangey color. He's unique. He's one of the only unique ponies we see in the Royal Guard. So in a way, that destroys all that. Why is he this color? Why is he allowed to be this color? Something to think about. All I'm gonna say is, he hasn't been in the Royal Guard for a long time, and he's not a captain of the Royal Guard, so that's not the answer. But we'll have to see. And now I think I want to talk a little bit more about exactly who would want to join the Royal Guard. The ponies of Equestria for the most part are quote-unquote non-violent. They're not about kicking people's butts or throwing spears at people, or being in combat or things of that nature. So what kind of pony would actually want to join the Royal Guard? Well, in BlueStar's case, it's what his father did, and it's his destiny to be a guardian, to be someone who will always fight and stand for Equestria. And also because he wanted to serve. He always wants to be there for Equestria and stand for everything that Equestria stands for and all those things like that. Certainly, if it was the destiny of this pony to fight for Equestria, it would most likely lead them to the Royal Guard. But it might lead them to other places as well. I wonder what those places might be. But anyway, Certainly, the kind of pony that would probably be attracted to the Royal Guard is someone who probably really loved and cared for Equestria, and certainly everything that it stood for. Because why else would you do something like basically put your life on the line for that? Even though in reality, the Royal Guard are more likely to die of boredom than anything else. It would obviously be very wise for the pony to consider the fact that they could frankly die if they join the Royal Guard. I doubt we'll ever hear a line like that in My Little Pony, but still something that they should probably consider before trying to join the Royal Guard. And obviously ponies with really good character would probably be the only ones who would want to join the Royal Guard and ultimately would make it to the Royal Guard. Again, that would make the Royal Guard be very, very special. In theory, they are the best of the best and all that stuff. So I must admit, I can't help but wonder, would Bluestar really make it into the Royal Guard? I must admit, I think the answer to that question in a way would be no. But then, maybe the answer to that question is in fact yes. The reason he eventually makes it into the Royal Guard is he doesn't give up. He gets rejected several times, and quite a few times by the Royal Guard. But he keeps on trying and keeps trying to get stronger and overcome what limitations he has. And in the end, it's some of those limitations that end up becoming his greatest strength, and that they help him develop new skills and new magic powers and things that ultimately make him much, much stronger than he was before. I must admit, that's a pretty neat thing when I think about a lot of different things, particularly about this episode in Star Trek called Spectre of the Gun, where, long story short, basically they didn't have the money to build this big set that they wanted. So they basically compromised and they made basically just the storefronts of this western town that they were trying to make. And it ended up working really well. And there are cases like this all through the media and movies, TV and stuff where, oh, we have this limitation, but in the end that limitation ends up being a great strength. And that is ultimately what, in the end, makes Bluestar prevail, is that he keeps on fighting to overcome those things, and in the end becomes much stronger because of it. And maybe this is simply why Bluestar in the end would have deserved to join the Royal Guard, is that despite everything he didn't give up and he kept on fighting for this thing that he believed in. And it was also something that he wanted so desperately and so badly that it nearly drove him to total exhaustion in order to get it. And sometimes he wanted to give up, but in the end he never gave up and would always keep on fighting for that thing that he wanted. And that is certainly a trait that the Royal Guard would most likely want. Someone who would be willing to fight to the very end, no matter how bad or how hard things were, and somehow overcome problems and in the end achieve their goal through hard work, struggle, and determination. After all, these two guards would be the last line of defense between the princesses and whatever threat would be coming their way, and you certainly wouldn't want them to be just anyone. So, in the end, the Royal Guard truly are the best of the best. And if Bluestar would truly be accepted to the Royal Guard, that would without a doubt be a great honor. So, that is the end of my video of who can join the Royal Guard and why. This is Bluestar. Stay strong and pony on. Bluestar out.